Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you. So far, we have a nice, intimate group. I'm Sheila Berlinger, and I'm your supervisor for elementary math here in Montgomery County, and I'm thrilled to be with you this morning. I have a co-pilot today and to give me some assistance with the technology. So I appreciate the support from our technology office. So Tyler, thank you for being here with us as well. I'm going to go ahead and get us started this morning as we talk about supporting students with learning differences in elementary mathematics here in the county. Please feel free to use the chat as questions occur to you. I might not answer them as we go, but it'll give me a record of what to circle back to. And we're such a nice, small, intimate group that I'm hoping when we get to the end and you do have questions that that we can just open microphones and it can become a discussion. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Again, I'm Sheila Berlinger. And if you'd like to each introduce yourself in the chat, if you're a parent or you're a colleague, it'd be great to know who I'm interacting with today. So I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to get started talking about supporting elementary mathematics, supporting your child with elementary mathematics. Making sure I can get to everything. Okay. So again, let me introduce myself. Welcome to all of you. And I am Sheila Berlinger. I'm the supervisor for elementary math. And this presentation was created in collaboration between the elementary math and the special education departments. Kelly Geron and Dr. Rachel Orgel were instrumental in building the presentation you're going to see today. This session will focus on, I'm going to hide the toolbars and make sure that you can see the screen. How about that? All right. This session will focus on elementary mathematics in MCPS, centering on students with disabilities. Participants will learn about the Eureka Math curriculum and the components and resources that are available to support families. This session will provide an opportunity for participants to ask questions and learn about ways to support their children at home in mathematics. So what does a typical Eureka lesson look like? What is the mathematics experience your student is having in the classroom every day? Most Eureka Math lessons are comprised of 4 components. They are typically organized in this order. However, in some lessons, something may be omitted or the sequence may be moved around. Most lessons begin with fluency activities. Fluency should be fun and engaging, providing students with daily opportunities to practice their speaking and listening, as well as their mathematics. It often involves movement too. We try to make these as active as possible. The application problem provides students with an opportunity to apply their skills and understandings in new ways through the read, draw, write process. First, students read the problem, then draw a model to represent it and help them solve it. And finally, at the end, they write a full sentence that answers the question. Read, draw, write is an evidence-based strategy that, when taught explicitly with modeling and practice, is very effective with students with disabilities. The concept development component is the main event of the lesson. It is the largest portion and includes the direct teaching of grade level material. This is an area where your child might be receiving explicit instruction in a skill or concept with the use of concrete manipulatives or other things identified on your child's IEP. Concept development ends with a 10-minute problem set. The problem sets are not graded. They are teachable practice and are mirrored in the daily homework. The other interesting factor about the problem set is that very rarely would a child be assigned an entire problem set. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. The debrief closes out the lesson with a discussion which results in rich discourse in low-risk situations. These are situations that allow students to share their thinking in smaller groups or pairs before potentially sharing out in the larger group. Again, more speech practice, more language practice, more student discourse. After all, the people doing the talking are the people who are learning. Today's focus is all about supporting your students with IEPs. but we also want to draw attention to the resources that are available for all students. You may have seen some of these in a principal's message at back to school night or from the classroom teacher. If you haven't, check in with your child's case manager and classroom teacher. Today, I'm going to call out 2 of these resources. Let me drop a link into the chat for you. This is a document you should be able to access. First, I'm going to talk about the parent tip sheets, the second bullet that you see on the screen. The parent tip sheets are provided at the beginning of each topic for grades K through 8. In pre-K, the same concepts are part of the parent newsletter. So for our youngest learners, it's a newsletter as opposed to a tip sheet. They provide an overview, strategies and models, key vocabulary, connections to previous learning, and tips for how to support your child at home. Every homework assignment, the second parent resource I want to put a spotlight on is what comes with every homework assignment. Every homework assignment in Eureka Math gives students the opportunity to further practice what they learned in class and more deeply understand the why behind the math. Now families can more easily support their child at homework time by using the homework helpers. That's the 4th bullet on your screen. Homework helpers provide step-by-step explanations of how and why to work problems similar to those found in Eureka Math homework assignments. Homework helpers also provide examples of language that families may hear their child use as they explain their thinking while completing homework problems. You will find these homework helpers in the Succeed book preceding each homework assignment. And even if your school does not assign homework, these are great resources for you as families to better understand the math. We also want to point out that students, regardless of having an IEP or not, are not meant to complete the entire homework, similar to not completing the entire problem set. You should check in with your child's teacher about which problems were assigned. The homework problems should mirror the problem set practice that your child engaged in during the day. One new tool added this year that you may have heard about from your child's teacher or case manager is InSync and Equip. Many of the functions are geared towards supporting the teacher to better meet the needs of each child. One feature we want to point out are the InSync resources. These are 10 to 20-minute videos that can offer another round of instruction. Some teachers are using these in school and others are sending the links home as a replacement of homework. Talk to your case manager if you're interested in using these at home. If so, we recommend sitting alongside your child and pausing the video to ask clarifying questions and to practice what is being shown. Sample questions could be, can you explain? Could be, what strategy did you use? A great thing about these videos is that the school has access to all grade levels. Your case manager might recommend watching the video of the day's lesson, or they might recommend using one from a previous grade level. We'll take a moment to watch a short clip of one video, and then we'll dig a little deeper into grade level instruction and intervention.
Hi friends, it's Miss Duckett, ready to guide you through another math lesson. Today, we are going to be comparing length to see what's longer or shorter. Are you ready to get started? Great, here we go. Friends, I'm going to show you a picture. Get ready. Here's my picture. What's longer, the marker or the pencil? Two buttons are going to pop up on your screen, one showing a marker and one showing a pencil. Go ahead and tap the one that you think is longer. The marker. How did you know? Okay. Well, I have a magic trick for you. On a count of 3, we are all going to say abracadabra, and my little red paper is going to disappear. Are you ready for some magic? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Abracadabra! My paper disappeared. what's longer now, the marker or the pencil? Hmm. If I think I read your minds correctly, I heard some people say the marker was longer because the top is taller. I heard some people say the pencil was longer because it's hanging down farther than the marker. I also heard some people say that they weren't really sure. Hold on 1 second, please. Okay, I'm back. Now, can you tell which one is longer? The pencil. Let's fill in some sentence frames. The first one is the is longer than the I want you to fill this in and say it out loud for me. Go ahead. You got it. The pencil is longer than the marker. Let's do another one.
So that gives you a little bit of an idea of how some of the instruction is presented in our InSync resources. Just as a reminder, and for those who joined us after the start of the session, please feel free to use the chat as a space to drop your questions. I see one now. I see one asking if homework is counted towards grades. The answer is no. Homework is not to be graded, as it is intended to be, like the problem set during the day, teachable practice. It's an opportunity for teachers to identify what concepts students are confident in and where their learning has been solidified and where they might have some misconceptions that need to be clarified. Great question. Again, please go ahead and use the chat to track your questions, and we'll have more time at the end to answer those as well. We're very excited about InSync and Equip, and I can talk more about that also once we come back together for our discussion. All right. So instruction and intervention and how they work together, because they do, they work together. If your child has a math goal on his or her IEP, it is most likely linked to the grade level curriculum. Goals are addressed throughout all components of the Eureka Math block. When a student is behind in math, it's important to do two things. First, provide rigorous instruction at the grade level and intervene at the instructional level. I'm going to say that again. If a student is behind in math, it's important to do both, provide rigorous instruction at the grade level and intervene at the instructional level. It's that important. This practice helps close the gap between where the child is performing and the current grade of enrollment. What you see on the screen is a graphic of the development of a math standard. The green arrow represents the grade level content. In this case, where the student needs to be would be solving multi-step word problems posed with whole numbers and having whole number answers using the 4 operations. The red arrow might represent where the student is performing within the standard. It's pointing to the step in the process of learning where you use addition and subtraction within 100 to solve 1- and 2-step word problems. When teachers plan for supporting students who struggle in math, it's important that they plan for both meaningful engagement in the grade level content, where that green arrow is pointing, as well as intervention to help move the student forward. We want to move them from the red arrow to the green arrow. If we don't provide access and engagement in the grade level instruction, the gap is not going to decrease. If we don't provide explicit and systematic intervention at the level the student is performing, the gap will not decrease. We'll just continue to move the gap forward, and we don't want to do that. Or we might make the gap wider, which we absolutely don't want to do. Both are equally important in accelerating a student's progress. In MCPS, many students receive intervention instruction using foundational resources in Eureka Math and/or a program called iReady. Intervention is an explicit, systematic, direct instruction led by a staff member trained in the program or resources. If you're not sure if your child is in need of an intervention, check with your child's case manager. Again, as questions strike you, please feel free to drop them into the chat. If your child's disability impacts math, they're likely often frustrated by it. And we want to make sure that we can make math fun. We don't want this to be frustrating. We want it to be engaging. We want them to look forward to engaging in their math learning every day. The last thing we want is additional stress. So let's keep math fun. It should not just be paper and pencil tasks. Math is everywhere, and noticing and engaging with that is just as important as what is included during the school day. Does your family like to cook? Whether your child is helping measure ingredients or counting items to set the table, that counts. Does your family have a favorite board game or card game? Most games have some connection to math skills. Also think about your child's interests and strengths. Are they an amazing athlete? Consider having a discussion with them about the statistics from their favorite team. Do you have a budding artist in your home? Many artists use mathematical concepts to improve their drawings. You can even keep it simple and make a prediction about how many pencils it will take to complete a portrait. I'm going to give you a moment to think about one strength your child has and one math connection you can make to it. I'm going to ask you, because I know that we don't know each other, but if you're willing to take a risk and share an interest and a math connection in the chat, that'll give us a little bit to talk about together in just a moment. Remember, we want to continue to make math fun and engaging. Every one of us are math people, and we want our children to believe that they are math people as well. Our presentation is short and sweet with the intention of preserving time to answer your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We are a nice, intimate group. I'd like to be able to see everybody so we can interact. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look in the, I'm going to take a look in the chat at some of the questions. The first question that was asked is, how can we get a copy of the Eureka Math curriculum? Well, Montgomery County does not release its entire published curriculum. So it's not accessible in that way. But there's a couple of resources that you may want to use that could be really helpful to you. First, Eureka Math is built on Engage New York, which was originally an open educational resource, which means when you Google Engage New York, the whole product comes up. All of the scope and sequence and all of that comes up online. Now, Eureka bought it, and they have since done incredible improvements to upgrade and revise and polish and strengthen the coherence and the rigor of the curriculum. So it's not exactly the same, but if you were to look at Engage New York online, it would give you a pretty good idea of the sequence in which the kids are learning and what happens from grade to grade, et cetera. It's also all grounded, in the Common Core, and the Maryland College and Career Ready standards are based on the Common Core state standards. And another resource is a website called Achieve the Core, which also mirrors exactly what we're teaching kids from grade level to grade level. The last tool that would be really helpful if you're looking for a full overview of a current grade level is one of those parent resources that's listed on the document I dropped in the chat. I'm going to drop it one more time. And those are the roadmaps. The roadmaps, the website I referenced was Achieve the Core. The roadmaps give you the overview of what an entire grade level is intended to cover, and it gives you a brief description of what the major work of each one of those grades is. That's a really good question. The other thing that's really helpful to look at is your student Eureka Math consumable materials when they come home. So you'll get a sense of where the learning is going and in what sequence. Another question that was asked was how support can be provided with word problems. That is a great question. And one of the, I think taking a close look, for you all to take a close look at the read, draw, write strategy, I'm going to try to toggle between two things right now to see if I can find a quick resource for you all on the read, draw, write strategy. That is the explicit instruction a teacher is providing to children starting as early as kindergarten and first grade on how to attack the word problems. What you're reading for, what you're drawing, what you're reading for, what you're drawing. It's not entirely linear because we want them to go back and forth and back and forth. And if your child has a reading goal in their IEP, in addition to a math goal, then their case manager and classroom teacher should also be working with the individual child on the strategies that they would need in order to continue to help break down those word problems. That's all I see in the chat. Would anyone like to come off mute and ask something else?
Well, it seems like you covered almost all the topics. Yeah, we can think about.
Well, great. I'm glad that I was able to be supportive and proactive. For some of us, or many of us, when we went to math class as elementary children, our experiences were quite different from what our children are experiencing now, right? And I'll tell you, I've been in Montgomery County for many years. I'm finishing my 6th year as the supervisor for mathematics. I've taught many years of math and science, and I've heard parents reference the new math for probably 15 to 20 years at this point, because it just, we've been in this space now where we are expecting students not only to compute, but to reason and to model. It's a multidimensional approach to mathematics. And any tools that we can put in your hands so that you understand the approach for learning and you're able to help your child is what we want to do. My job is to make sure you can support your children, and my job is to make sure your child's teachers can do their jobs. So any questions that you have about any of this, be it now, be it after the fact, you're welcome to email me as well. I'm happy to be a resource for you. Our goal, the goal of the pre-K to 12 math program in Montgomery County, is to build strong mathematical thinkers, not just answer getters. And we're only going to be able to do that, and we're only going to be able to equip and empower each of our children if we're able to do the same for you.
I have a curious question.
Sure.
So many parents want to hire a tutor for the kids, like prepare them for the next step, and probably even ask tutors to teach the kids, in advance. For example, like my daughter is in kindergarten, and then I just use my daughter as a example. I'm not hiring any tutor, but the thing is that even I think about, should I teach her some curriculums or materials or knowledge in the first grader, like prepare her, be ready, so she won't be left behind, that kind of thing. We worry, right? We just like, what if she left behind by the her peers? They're better in math than her, or thing like that. So maybe we should, teach her in advance. Maybe she won't be left behind. But another worry is if we teach the kids, like during summer break, right? We teach her the math, which will be taught in the first grade. But then when she really goes to the first grade, she maybe feel like, oh, I know this. So she may lose the interest or attention, thing like that. So how to balance that, or should we teach the kids in advance?
So our policy and our approach and our commitment to our children is to meet them where they are, and to make sure that they're achieving a year's worth of learning or more in a year. And so I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Over the years, what has emerged in the study of mathematics education is that at the younger ages, they need to develop at a pace that is appropriate for the age that they're at. So do I advocate that we teach 2 grade levels at the same time, or we try to accelerate our youngest learners? In the general population, no. The research is playing out that it is more and more appropriate to begin accelerating that learning and to learn more faster as they approach adolescence, not when they're younger. And so we teach grade level content to grade level students. And then for the children who are ready for more, or who would benefit from something more rigorous or challenging, we have a 4-tiered approach to enriching the math, where they're going even deeper into the grade level content. if you'd like to preview the next grade levels learning with your child, you absolutely may. I'd encourage you to talk to your child's case manager about those in-sync resources and what your child has access to through the Eureka Math platform, because that might be something that you want to preview. Do I feel like our elementary kids need to be hiring tutors and trying to jump grade levels? We really try to discourage it. And we've backed away from over accelerating children, because what we're finding is that moving them too fast through elementary school is backfiring when they get to Algebra 1.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Algebra 1 is not as computational as it used to be either. So the Algebra 1 you and I experienced is very different from the Algebra 1 our children are experiencing. And they need that comprehensive approach to the foundational mathematics in all of their operations, in fractions, in rational numbers, all of it before they get there, or we leave a very shaky foundation. That ultimately has an impact on calculus. I will tell you, I never excel. I'm also a parent. I'm a Montgomery County parent. My youngest is actually graduating in 2 weeks. And neither one of my daughters was accelerated in mathematics. They followed the grade level pathways all the way through. And my oldest is a successful third-year engineering student in college, because we let her learn at the pace that made sense, and we didn't try to move too fast.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I see a hand up.
Hi, how are you? I actually made a question about the reading comprehension. I couldn't get what you said. It's the method is the read and write, I think you said it was, that I guess they break down the question to answer. But like my son doesn't have patience, and I try to like make him like, okay, let's read the first part, read the second part. But he goes, no, you answer the first part and that's the answer. So maybe you can help me to understand what's the strategy behind like this like breakdown of the questions, so I can help him at home like a little bit that part.
That is so common, first of all. So you, that's very normal. So know that. It is called the read, draw, write strategy. I dropped it into the chat. What I'm doing right now, so if I can't complete my thought at the same time, is I'm grabbing the link for all of the parent resources off the Eureka Math website that you all have access to. They have terrific blogs and webinars and videos, and I know they have one on read, draw, write. I just have to find it for you. I'm going to give you the whole site's link, and if I can find the one specifically for read, draw, write, I'll give it to you so that you'll see what the process is, and they'll have a way of explaining it to you. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And it takes a while, right? Because so one of the challenges that I find that I talk to parents about quite frequently is that we would have historically valued speed in mathematics. That's not the criteria for success any longer. Comprehension and accuracy and the ability to comprehensively reason, to deeply reason and build your argument have greater value in mathematics than speed. And so while we used to time kids through lots of problems, and we all probably sat through things like Mad Minutes and that kind of thing, we're not racing to get an answer. And some kids want to, sometimes for lots of reasons. But one of the things we also try to work on in the classroom is reminding them that it's not necessarily speed, but rather accuracy and attention. The mathematics content standards also have what's called the standards for mathematical practice. So we have math content standards and math thinking standards. And so we're helping the kids develop both simultaneously. And so it's those mathematical thinking standards that help them unpack and attack these word problems effectively. So we're teaching them the skills of how to do it. It's not something somebody knows how to do automatically or naturally. It has to be explicitly taught. Hold on, I'm going to look for the read, draw, write strategy. Give me 1 second. If you go to here's the family site, by the way, for Eureka Math. If you go to the family site, it will ask you to create an account. There's no charge to it, and they do not send you advertisements. They are a not-for-profit organization. They don't sell your information either. But they like to know if you're connected to a district who's using their materials. So that's why they look to see. All right, let me see if I can find it. If someone has another question in the meantime while I'm looking for this, please feel free. Here is a blog article around read, draw, write. So you should be able to access that. Hopefully that is helpful. And again, some depending on who the audience was intended for when they wrote this particular blog, if it's for educators and it's too jargon heavy, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk further about these as we go forward. Anyone else have any questions? I appreciate the comment, Andrea, about, I hope it's Andrea, my apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, that the new math is, the expectations around mathematics instruction are definitely more comprehensive than they were for us when we were kids. And it can be hard. It can be hard to keep up with it. And we're inclined to teach the kids the way, I know I was inclined to teach my children the process that I learned when I learned the mathematics. But what I realized over time, as I watched my kids, now my kids are we're on the front end of some of this mathematics instruction, so they didn't have it as comprehensively as your children are experiencing, which makes me a little envious, frankly. But what I realized was that I was learning along with my child, and I had to dig in a little bit to make sure I could wrap my head around what they were doing. And I had to find a space where I was comfortable asking for help. The teachers were always quite generous if I needed support, especially as we got into the higher mathematics and we got past elementary school into middle school and high school. Once I got past geometry and some of algebra 2, I was at a loss. You know, at that point, I definitely needed help to help my child.
And hopefully you can hear me. I feel like my signal's kind of shiny, which is why I didn't kind of just jump in there. But I think to your point, that's exactly what the biggest challenge is like you're learning with your kid, and then with Eureka, it goes so fast. Once you finally get a concept, they're on to the next one. And I think that's the challenge when you have a child with special needs. It's like making sure like you are there to be supportive after school, especially with certain concepts. But when you can't keep up yourself, that's where the challenge is. And I think those resources for the videos will be helpful, because that way I sometimes feel bad I'm having to tag the teacher so often with my questions, where I can use the video. And that video was pretty simple, where that can be a resource where I can like naturally understand the concept and be able to use similar strategies in his learning.
That's a great point. And there is, I believe, so we just onboarded the system in December to these platforms. They're new. And I believe there is a video for every lesson in every grade level. And so they're available. Your child has to log into the platform because they're the ones with the access to it through their Chromebooks. But you certainly can leverage them as well. And they would definitely be helpful. One of the other things I encourage you to do is definitely take a look at those parent roadmaps that tell you what the whole year has, because while it feels like a particular concept is moving very quickly in this lesson or in this topic, it's going to cycle back as they move on to later modules in the school year. So they don't put something down and not come back to it. It tends to circle back at some point. So when you put it up against the broader roadmap, you'll be able to see, oh, I bet they're coming back to this here. Okay. And sometimes, and this is what I learned about myself as a math learner, sometimes I needed to go 2 or 3 steps forward to understand what I had just learned. Okay, X might not make sense to me, but after I learned Y and Z, all of a sudden X made sense, and then Y and Z started making sense. So sometimes you just have to hang on and trust the process and know that if I'm stuck right here, let's try to go a little bit forward, see what happens, and then we can go back and see where we're still stuck. So being flexible and not stopping. And we talk to teachers about this all the time too, right? Just because the kids haven't mastered something today doesn't mean you shouldn't go on tomorrow. Sometimes you need to go on tomorrow so that today makes sense.
And I appreciate that comment, because I will be honest, I haven't kind of looked at a lesson or 2 ahead. So I can use that as a tip moving forward. That actually might kind of help with the intimidation part, where maybe I kind of forecast that and do a little bit better. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I have a small question. There's those kind of learning, online learning service providers, and that they post ads on YouTube. So the other day I encountered, right, the ad is like this. 5 fingers plus 2 fingers is 7, and 7 minus 2 fingers is 5. That means your kid does not have a sense of math. So when I was watching that ad, I was like, 5 plus 2 fingers does equal 7, and minus 2 fingers does equal 5. What does that mean? The kid does not have a sense of math. So the first of, I don't, we learn math, you know, so many years, but I never understand the concept. The first time for me to know the concept of sense of math. And that sample, later on, something clicked to my mind. Probably he refers that the kids shouldn't use fingers to count or to do the counting or thing like that. Is that what my understanding correct? Or you can explain what is the sense of math?
So I'll address the finger counting first. Eureka Math uses a process called happy counting, where the kids use their hands and their fingers all the time, and they mirror what parents are doing. I mean, what the teacher is doing. So when I count, okay, I will always start with this pinky. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is a typical fluency activity where the kids would count with me. 4, very young, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's a reason I want them using fingers. What else do we use in math? What's a tool that we use in math where the numbers go from left to right?
Oh.
What else do we use? Can you think of something?
From left to right?
Uh-huh. What would start counting on the left and end on the right?
Decimals?
Say that again.
Decimals?
They do. Yes. And we can do this with fractions and decimals too, by the way, which we do with older kids. Rulers go from left to right. 1, 2, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inch. Number lines go
length. Number lines. Yeah.
Number lines go from left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So we start, Eureka Math is incredibly strategic in how it applies tools like counting with your fingers and sequencing.
You
so
can link so many things all together. Yeah, suddenly we see we may eat. No, right? But when you ask us to all put them all together, we probably not experienced. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this is not how I learned, and this is not how you learned, but this is what research is showing that you do to build kids from something super concrete, their own fingers that they have with them, to something that becomes abstract, which is like a number line. A number line is a pretty abstract concept, and it's an abstract model. So, so do we count with fingers? We absolutely count with fingers. Do I fully understand what you're asking based on the ad you saw on YouTube? Not really. I would actually, I'm happy to take a look at whatever you saw if you wanted to send me a link. But I would encourage you to rely on the resources that Eureka provides. And if you go into the Eureka website that I linked into the chat for you, and you sit with your child, or you get your child to log into the InSync platform so you can see what some of those videos do, especially for younger children. I don't have a sense entirely of what grade levels you all are contending with. I did see a couple of young ones. I saw a K and a 1, I think, in the chat.
Yeah.
Anyone have a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader who's with me?
I do. I have a 3rd grader.
Okay. So what you will see Eureka do is they will transition away from those concrete manipulatives pretty quickly, because they want the kids to be able to get those models down on paper. However, what we spend a lot of time working with, both in general education and special education, is how you go back and forth between those concrete examples and those pictorial examples, so that the kids make the transition. They can use manipulatives all the way up through middle school. There's no reason not to. And it makes sense. Sometimes you just need to get that concrete out so that they can see it, and then they can move on to the pictorial pretty quickly. Sometimes the kids need to go back and forth a little bit, but we want them to use what they have available to them, and their hands are always attached to them. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And you show me a new window, you really open, make my mind open up. So probably that's what they're talking about. We need to practice the kids or help our kids build a sense of math. Probably just that one thing. Now I realize when I'm playing with my kid, I just use one hand and randomly count 1, 2, 3, thing like that. I never thought about make it like in a sequence or in a direction purposely, because it may build her a sense of like the length, like a sequence and thing like that. Probably that's what they're talking about, build a sense of math.
Right.
Like everything linked to math.
It's a number sense is what you're talking about. And how old is your child?
She's 6.
She's 6?
Kindergarten, yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that you want to do is you don't just want the rote numbers to come out. When I did my quick model, you'll notice I went forward and backward. So you're going to want your child to be able to go count forward and count backward.
Yes.
And then when you feel like you've got that, you can do some skip counting. 2, 4, 6, when she's ready. She may or may not be. Another great practice tool for pre-K and kindergarten children is to see how many objects they can. If you put 3 random objects down on the table, do they know that there are 3 spoons, or do they need to count them? Because there's a skill of where they assign the number to the object, but there's also a skill where they can look at the table, see that there's 3 spoons and just go, oh, there's 3 spoons. They don't need to count them. So that's another thing, right? As you're setting the table or as you're making breakfast or lunch, oh, how many eggs am I using? Whatever it is. Everything can be quantified. And that precision is one of those mathematical thinking skills we were talking about.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I that idea did a flash in my in my mind. It was like, put a few stones there. She knows right away grouping them, or she knows right away without really 1, 2, 3, 4 count. And then she's like, oh, there's a 4, oh, there's a 6, something like that. And I was like, oh. So I thought about that, but I didn't really put it into a kind of like a activity or program to constantly practice. That is good. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. I am so, in some ways, like I said, my youngest is graduating high school in a couple weeks. I am sad that my children aren't getting this mathematical experience. And my favorite thing to do is to get called in to co-plan and co-teach with teachers in the classrooms, which my team and I do all the time. You may see us in and out of your children's schools because we learn best, and we can, like I said at the very beginning, our job is to make sure the teachers can do theirs and that your students become the best mathematical thinkers possible. And the only way we can do that is if we can walk this talk, if we can teach it and we can give feedback on it. And so we do. We plan with teachers, we teach with teachers, we get feedback from teachers, and then we help them build their skills too. So we are, so that's a little bit about us. We do it in partnership with our special education friends. We do it in partnership with our English language development friends. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes on across those 2 teams, as well as our accelerated and enriched instruction friends. So at the elementary level, so much is integrated. In the chat, Mary Rose Katina, thank you, Ms. Katina, has dropped a link for you to give some feedback about this session and the summit itself. So we do have 5 minutes left together, and I am happy to stay on and answer any additional questions. And for those of you who are ready to stand up and stretch before you go to your next session, please take a moment and fill out our session evaluation. And don't hesitate to reach out if I can be of a resource to you. I understand that they're going to share the they're going to publish the slide decks, and you'll find my name and my colleagues' names in that slide deck, so you can reach out to us if you need us. So let me go ahead and address, it says Dwayne on the screen.
Yes. How you doing, Sheila?
I'm great.
All right, good. Okay, so I have a question. So my daughter, she is in the 3rd grade going to the 4th grade, and I'm really trying to take some resources and invest in her this summer to kind of get her ready for math. She kind of struggled this year. So what do you, so my question is like, what do you think about Kuma, or is there any special programs that I can kind of put her in to kind of get her ready for like, you know, next year?
So we don't advocate any particular commercial programs like that, but here's what I would ask your daughter's current teacher and case manager. I would ask for some information around her Eureka Math assessments and her MAP assessment that identifies the grade 3 content that might have been most challenging for her. Because I will tell you that you can identify on the Khan Academy site, for example, the exact sections of the major work of grade 3 that she needs some reinforcement with before she moves on to grade 4. So that is one resource you could definitely use. The second resource, of course, would be to match those content areas with the resources in the Eureka Math in Sync platform that your daughter can log into. So you can ask your, I would ask the teacher and the case manager for the targeted critical grade 3 work wherever she was struggling. The major work of grade 3 is really around multiplication and division of whole numbers, and they begin to get into fractions. So there may be some work there.
Case manager. Is it a case manager? Yeah, I don't know about my daughter had a case. I didn't know she had a case manager. So she has an IEP, but I never met a case manager.
Dwayne, the case manager would be the special educator that is actually working along with your child's general education.
Got it. Okay, got it. Okay, thanks. I appreciate that, Mary. Okay,
No
hey,
problem.
thank you, Sheila. I appreciate that. So basically asking, like talking to her teachers and finding out, like, you know, I guess getting those assessments. Thanks, I appreciate it. I'll do that.
I'm gonna drop the 2 things you should ask for in the chat. So if you want to copy and paste them somewhere, you can.
Cool. Thank you so much.
That's a great question.
Question if no one else had one.
Sure.
What kind of things do I need to be doing as a parent, like for my daughter during the school year in 4th grade? Like, what do I need to be doing, like, on a daily basis to kind of make sure she's successful with Eureka Math?
You should ask her something new she learned that day. Every day. Look at the homework helpers every day, so you know exactly what the content is, whether she has homework or not. The county does not prescribe that everybody has to use homework, just so you know. But those homework helpers give you an overview or give you some insight as to what those lessons are. And if you don't, and if it's not conducive to do it every day, you can use the topic tip sheets, the parent tip sheets, because that is a bundle of lessons. But I would ask, what is something new she learned every day? What was the hardest thing or the easiest thing? Something that's going to make her prioritize or judge or rank order. You want to push her to think critically about her own learning and make so that she gives you an answer. It gives you more than just, how was school today? You'll get fine if you ask that. But I would definitely engage her in dialogue daily. And the other thing is to bring anything you can mathematical to the surface in anything that you're doing. So we gave you some examples of, let's talk about the statistics of your favorite sports team. Let's talk about the speed and the tempo of the music you're playing, because that's all fractions, by the way, if your child is an instrument player or a singer. Any way you can bring math from real life into the conversation. The other thing that I feel really strongly about, Mary Rose has heard me say this on a gajillion occasions. We are all math people. We absolutely cannot stand in front of our children and say, I'm not very good at math, so you're probably not very good at math, and that's okay, because that's not okay. We all use math every day in capacities that we don't even realize it. So building a positive math mindset, asking about learning every day, those are 2 critical things to be doing with children from the earliest ages all the way through. And then to know you can keep a handle on what they're learning by looking at those parent tip sheets and the homework helpers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, my friends, it's 10:53. I do want to make sure you get a stand and stretch before you move on to your next session. If you have not had a chance yet to fill out the evaluation, please do so. Email me at any time. I'm happy to engage with you. And I only get 10 more days to say I'm an MCPS parent. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.